Hello, I'm Dr. Scott Wadier.
And I'm Tommy Welling, and you're listening to the Fasting for Life podcast.
This podcast is about using fasting as a tool to regain your health, achieve ultimate wellness, and live the life you truly deserve.
Each episode is a short conversation on a single topic with immediate actionable steps. We cover everything from fat loss and health and wellness to the science of lifestyle design.
We started Fasting for Life because of how fasting has transformed our lives, and we hope to share the tools that we have learned along the way. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fasting for Life podcast. My name is Dr. Scott Wadier. I am here, as always, with my good friend and colleague, Tommy Welling. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Scott. How are you?
Fired up, man. I have been super excited about the momentum that we've been gaining over the last few weeks with the change to Tuesday podcasts, with the new content and feedback that we've been getting, and the fact that I got to talk about myself last episode. Which was really cool.
Love that. Right.
Yeah. Yours was a few episodes ago. Don't think I forgot.
But I hated every second of it.
Right. It was terrible. Amazing feedback about your story and how you use 72-hour fast, but which might very well be my least favorite time window when I'm fasting, which is so interesting in learning how to master this thing. But with that, in all seriousness, being able to tell the story of how you guided me to lose, 48 and a half pounds in 50 days and be able to maintain 42 to 44 plus pounds lost over the last 6 to 8 months and just been able to easily maintain it. Hopefully that message was received, that it's simple and it just requires a lot of consistency. So Buna Bib posted that question. And thank you again for that question, because it really made me go back and look at it. I didn't do anything crazy or drastic. It was just consistency. So appreciate that. And it was a good episode.
Yeah, it was. It's crazy to think back a year ago and remember what that was like, to be worried about the next, hitting the next milestone, but then also the uncertainty of how we were going to maintain it. You remember that feeling without the progress and the history behind it, and that confidence that comes over time. Like, you don't have to be doing 7-day fasts to gain that confidence, but after you've done one meal a day for 30 days in a row, or you're down 20, 30 pounds, and then you go a few months and they don't creep back up for the first time in decades, that's huge. You're a different person. You're thinking completely differently at that point.
And it's the mental acknowledgement or understanding. We talk a lot about this, and you explain it very well in terms of just having that realization that, okay, this is now different, and now I have the control. For the first time, what you just spoke about was I have control over what the scale is going to do, how I feel, how I sleep, my energy levels on a day-to-day basis. And I now have the control over what we're going to talk about tonight, which is my health and what the future holds for me in terms of, insulin resistance, weight gain, obesity, heart disease, and not becoming one of those statistics that, especially right now with everything else that's going on, becomes extremely important for those people that have those conditions and why it's so much more serious for them. So it's just the simplicity and the control that this gave us, which now we're seeing in the people that we're helping and we're coaching, is, it's crazy to think back and be like, wow, it's been almost a year for me. It's been over a year for you. And it's just been a lot of wins.
Yeah, it's so many small wins over time, but your brain just starts thinking differently after just so many years of different outcomes and conditioning over that time. It does take time to get used to that control, where you have this level of learned helplessness that if you got to a certain point, that eat less, move more model is not going to keep working. And so you kind of get used to, okay, I'm only going to get to a certain point. then I'm going to backslide. Then I'm going to have trouble, getting to the next, milestone and getting back on the wagon after I fall off. You know what the cycle is, you get used to it, and it gets less and less effective every time you do it. It's different, and it takes some time to get used to. It's crazy.
Yeah, and just like all things, I mean, you value what you measure. So no different than your family's finances or your relationships or your health. Like, you value what you measure. So if you've been measuring everything for so long and all your inputs are from a system that looks at the result or the symptom and not the cause, then you're going to end up on that cycle of small win, loss, small win, loss, small win, loss. And that's the power where fasting. And this is what I love about the content that we have in the just the quiz and the course and the training and the metabolic program that we're putting together. Like, this is really going to be giving you the tools. So you don't need us. You don't need a podcast. I can't believe I'm saying this. You don't need, you have everything you need, rather than having to keep going back and getting, up and down results. Like, you literally will start trending in the right direction, moving towards health and wellness and vitality, and not towards what the statistics show, which is diabetes, obesity, weight gain, cardiovascular disease, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what we really want to focus on tonight is, as we come out of this odd time that we've gone through, right? This strange new world, right? That we're coming out and emerging into, we want to encourage each and every one of you that now is the time, because if you haven't started, you're never going to get a different result. You can't think that just ignoring it or pretending that it's not that big of a deal, or that you'll just, continue to believe the same inputs that you believed year after year after year. Like, for me in my early 20s, my late 20s, my early 30s, none of this even mattered to me. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, none of these things were a concern. And now I'm in my, late 30s, and I'm like, oh, now I get why I hear those things like, oh, someday, son, it'll catch up to you. Or just wait till you turn 40. And I'm like, that can't be real. Like, there's got to be another way outside of the status quo, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like some sort of death sentence, some sort of, curse that you can't get away from. But that's exactly that's how it felt even in my 20s, honestly. And, just a little worse each year. So I could imagine add 20, 30 years to that and still not have the solution. Yeah, it would just feel like a jail sentence. Like, you're never getting away from this, right?
Yeah. And what we're talking about really is the acceptance of in my opinion, the acceptance of the inevitability, and the realization that you don't, the small decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis now do have a massive effect and impact on retirement and your later years in life. Like, there are a lot of metrics and a lot of, whenever I do workshops or talks in the past, I always called it the State of the Union, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact that, with this whole COVID business, is that if you have diabetes, or if you have COPD, or if you have a comorbidity or another underlying medical condition, you are now high risk because of the fact that your body is in a metabolic state of dysfunction. It is not functioning properly, right? So when we look, 68% of people, right, that have diabetes or blood sugar problems die of heart disease. That's 7 out of 10 people.
Wow.
Right? Like, okay, let me back up. This is not a fear-based motivational speech here. It's a realization that, for me, that I kind of got away from realizing that I was getting worse and worse and worse, a little bit worse every single year. And for me, I was trying to figure it out. For most people, it's just become normal.
You just accept it over time. I can't fix this.
And you follow in your family's footsteps, and you listen to your doctor, and you go to, the American Diabetes Association website. And do they ever mention reversal?
No, management. We can
management.
you can manage it. You can slow it down.
Slow it down.
That's what they talk about.
The reason why I felt obliged is the word I'll use to want to talk about this now, right? Is my dad was supposed to come down and visit, right, in 2 days. Yes,
So was
Tommy,
mine.
I got
So
that
was
right.
mine.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
And
Yeah, like at the same time.
yeah, and be here for my son's first birthday.
Mm-hmm.
But now, due to everything that's going on and the fact that he is high risk, but I'll tell you this: he started listening to the podcast. My mom downloaded the mini masterclass, so we're making some
Nice.
progress.
There you
So
go.
fingers crossed. We'll keep praying for it. But it just made me realize, like, okay, if my dad can't be here for my son's first birthday because of the environment that we live in right now, like that has to be impacting hundreds of thousands of other people when there are 52 million Americans that have diabetes or blood sugar related issues, and
Mm-hmm.
the obesity population, right, which directly relates to insulin and blood sugar related problems,
Yep.
right, metabolic dysfunction. That number is in the low to mid 40s now, and it's supposed to be over 50% of the population by 2030. So like this isn't just affecting me and my dad not being here for my son's first birthday, which I encourage. I'm like, cancel your tickets, dude. Like, stay home.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like if I got it, I'd recover. I just don't want to even think about what that would turn into. Um, it just made me realize that it's like, okay, if this is affecting me, someone in this medium that's been able to get a control over it, reverse it, and help other people reverse the problem and get to the cause of the problem and not treat the symptom, then there's millions of other people that are dealing with the same problem
Oh yeah,
and probably
absolutely.
don't know how to express it or even know that it's there.
Yeah, and not even being able to acknowledge that there's any other perspective to it. Just going, yeah, I'm high risk. I can't, XYZ. I can't leave the house. I can't do, something I was supposed to do. I have to cancel my trip. But it's just like an accepted thing. Like, they're walking into the grocery store because they have to get food, and they're frustrated that anybody else is around because they know they're high risk. So they feel like they're walking into um, just a high risk situation that they don't want to be in, frustrated about it. But there's no accepting, or there's no alternative to it.
My dad worked his entire life. He worked his behind off, right, to provide for us. And I mean, he worked hard, and now he's in retirement. He's a few years into retirement, and he could possibly have to give up a year of it because of this. Like, imagine if I was able to not know this now and this is what I think about and get to where he's at, right, at his age, at 70 years old, and look back
Mm-hmm.
and go, man, if I would have just known what I know earlier in life, like maybe some people would say, well, yeah, maybe you wouldn't change your outcome, like you're trying to rewrite history. But
Mm-hmm.
like I would have to believe that eventually I would get to the point where I'd be like, okay, I have two choices here. I can end up in this same situation, possibly having to give up an entire year of my life doing the things that I want to do in retirement because of the choices I made and the simple changes I didn't make 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been hearing multiple people say, I have diabetes, or I have, some blood pressure issues. I have cardiovascular disease. I have XYZ, something else, one of the comorbidities. And they're saying, I'm at high risk. So I can't leave the house. I can't travel. I can't do, something that I want to do. But if there was a solution, if there was something that could empower you to fix that for the next time. I know we've never seen anything like this, asking great grandparents, and, they haven't seen anything like this in 100 years. That's fine. But it could happen again. It will eventually happen again. So would you want to put yourself in a spot where you could treat it differently next time? What if the whole thing just dies down, but then it flares back up? come the fall or come the spring or whatever it may be. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and
Would you
that's
want to be in a different position?
of course you would. And that's the thing where I was like, okay, like it just kind of all came to a head as we're coming out of this and things are changing and it's a whole new world and my dad had to cancel his trip. Like I'm thinking about it going, okay, well we know if you have diabetes, you're and blood sugar problems, you're more prone to infections, right? And poorer
Mm-hmm.
outcomes. So managing it through exercise and restriction doesn't work long term, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're managing it, you're not correcting it. So, what's the cause? It's not the blood sugar, it's the insulin. Well, if you're not on insulin, right, if you're not a type 1 diabetic and you need it, you have the ability to reverse it. So, why wait? Like now, start now. Like just download the Fast Start Guide, send us a message, and skip breakfast tomorrow.
Yeah, start the conversation. Ask us what we would do. What's a first step? What's a good first step? We're answering emails like that.
Yeah. And I think that's where it just kind of all came to, I don't want to say came to a head where I was like, okay, um, it's time for us to start like making a greater impact. I know that seems crazy because you and I talk about all the time about just the amazing stories and testimonials and things that we've been hearing from people that we've been working with.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I think it's time to get on the megaphone and and start blasting this thing out there.
Step onto the soapbox. Well, we got the emails.
You
We
trying
got
to tell me?
emails
You trying to
going.
tell me I'm on a soapbox? Is that what you're trying to tell
No,
me?
I think you should get on a higher one.
Okay.
Because I think that the message is one that needs to be heard. It's one that we wish we heard a long time ago, and we're getting feedback saying, "I've never heard anything like this, but I'm so glad I finally did."
So I think part of the problem for me lately has been we went through this period where it was like, all right, let's talk about insulin, let's talk about the problem, let's get in the research, let's do this, let's roll out our mindset, our motivation, our method, our mastery. We've got our group challenges. We're doing some coaching. We've got our Facebook page. We've got the podcast. Like we're creating content. We're like, okay, well, what is this turning into in terms of impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, how are we going to measure that? Where are we going to go with this? And it's to almost get out of like the minutia of the details for a second, which is really hard for me to do because that's how my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
But to get into the emotional side of it, where it's like, listen, literally, this comes down to simply making a decision. And that day that you looked at me and said, stop eating, and I said, what in the hell are you talking about? And you said, no, this is what you're going to do. And then 50 days later, my life was forever changed. Like 50 days.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, forget that. Like 7 days in, I was like, yep, here
Right.
it is.
Right.
This is it. So
it's crazy.
It's so crazy and so simple and so actionable that if you've been with us from the beginning, right? I don't know what episode this is, but whatever it is, we're not going to, I don't know. Just if you've been dabbling, just dip your dang foot in the water, like jump off the deep end, come on in. The water's warm. We know what to do. We're here for you. We've got the group. We're in the tree of trust. Like we're here. It's time now because before you know it, and this is me speaking from being in private practice, working 80, 90 hours a week, helping people get out of pain, improve their quality of life, and change their mindset when it comes to the definition of the word health, that it's not a symptom management. It's that your body needs to be healing and functioning properly. That I went through this progression of realizing that I couldn't figure out how to help myself first, and that I was getting sicker, and I was turning into the very thing that I was trying to prevent.
Mm-hmm.
Like now is the time. Just a simple decision, flip the switch, and reach out. Download the Fast Start Guide and let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Should we say
All right.
anything else?
I don't think so. I think we should end it there.
Wrap it up? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. My soapbox feels pretty high right now. I think I'm probably around 19,000 feet, a little bit out of oxygen. My face is a little flushed. My feet are kind of cold. But hopefully the message was received.
I think it was. I think people are they're getting it. They're finding us, they're hearing the message, and they're taking action with it. We're getting messages back. I finally did let's see, we just got one earlier today, and she said, "Hey, thanks for the episode on the 72 hours. I'm going to take my first dive into the 72-hour water. I've been doing 1 meal a day, 24-hour fast. I'm going to do it." We've got multiple messages like that, so that's cool.
Yeah, that was your story. That was your episode, right? So I like how you had to pull that a little bit back to I do realize I hijacked this a little bit. So but you're laughing. No, we're in audio medium. We're on Zoom, so I can see the laughter. But again, the part of this is that it's conversational, it's actionable, it's accountability. We're here for it. This is why we started doing it. So once again, I just encourage that, you start now. There's absolutely no better time to get going.
If you're hearing this for the first time, like you're just joining us and you didn't go back and listen from the beginning.
Great point.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a different deal. So maybe go back, listen, but just to get you up to speed, if you've never fasted before or you've never done more than maybe a missed meal or two, there is a mind shift that occurs when you start doing longer fasts. There's a power behind it, whether you have 10 pounds to lose or 150 pounds to lose, or you're on medications for the last 30 years, it doesn't matter. This can completely reverse so many things, so many years of doctor's charts and medications and procedures, recommendations, everything. So it's there's just so much to it, but it's so simple.
It is. It's so simple. I think we should just wrap it up here. I have nothing else to say.
I don't think we need to say anything else.
Yeah.
Maybe this will be a short one, guys.
Yeah, I think so. Appreciate you, Tommy. You have a good night, sir.
Yeah, you too. Bye, Scott. So, you've heard today's episode, and you may be wondering, where do I start? Head on over to thefastingforlife.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive fasting tips and strategies to maximize results and fit fasting into your day-to-day life.
While you're there, download your free Fast Start guide to get started today. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Fasting for Life.